And this is episode 1.
Okay.
We decided to start with the most exciting thing you can think of out of all the things you learn in classes, the day you're going to intubate.
Yes.
What do you want to say about that?
A lot of excitement around it. Obviously that's the first thing that everybody thinks about doing when it comes to anesthesia. Although we learn later on, it's, of the least things you actually have to worry about throughout the case. First thing, but definitely not the only thing.
Everyone says that, and then I'm like, but if you don't intubate them, you can't do all the rest
You can't
of the
get
stuff.
to the rest. It's very true.
So that's what stresses me out, because I'm like, that's step 1. You don't do step 1, you can't do the rest.
However, if you cannot ventilate that patient before you intubate them, you're in deep trouble.
It's true.
But we'll talk about that a different time. We'll just focus on that intubation.
Yeah. So that's getting ready to hike, right?
How
So
was it for you, Lindsay? Do you remember?
I do. I think I went to the bathroom 10 times beforehand. And then I somehow magically found the cords, and they gave me a Mac 3 blade, and I've since gone to a Miller 2. And I like the Miller 2. And it's like I got the first one, and then the next week, I think I missed. And dealing with those emotions of missing.
I missed my first one. I'll never forget. I missed it, and I stepped back. And I felt bad. And I was like, man, I practiced on that mannequin so much. I should have gotten it. I'm not going to do anesthesia. Then I remember the CRNA looked at me and said, took me 3 months before I intubated anybody. And I looked back and I said, no, this is not going to happen to me. 3 months. But one thing I picked up from that experience, and I'm very grateful it happened that way, he told me, don't feel bad. Instead, think, what should I have done better? Ask the person who got the intubation, what is it that you saw me do or not do? What did you do differently that I could have done next time? Or just do it for yourself. So ever since then, instead of feeling terrible after missing an intubation, I'm like, what did I miss? And that has been very helpful. Like I'll step back and think back about the moment and think, okay, well, I did not take my time to position the patient properly.
Yeah, I've learned that was definitely the most important thing was positioning for me. My first actual opportunity, I diverted to one of my classmates who was actually there with me. We were kind of like shadowing at the same time that day. And just out of the blue, neither one of us expecting for the CRNA to say, all right, who's up? And I balked. I was like, this is like first day, first week. And he jumped in there. He did it like it was nothing. I was like, oh, okay. So, I'm feeling confident off his confidence. I go in for my actual first time, and I miss. And, it took a little toll on me, a little bruise to the ego. But I did learn, like you said, it's definitely positioning and watching what the person does coming behind you. It's really trying to put all these dots together, everything that you learned along the way, whether it come from, putting on your leads, getting ready to do everything, turn your gas on. All that's running around in your head at the same time that you're thinking about intubation. Well, with me it was. Everything was all over the place. But over time, you...
And everybody's watching you.
Yeah. You settle down, you breathe, you just, get a little tunnel vision. And, it's gotten to where it needs to be.
Get a lot of tunnel vision.
Yeah, for sure.
But the devil's in the details, I feel like, every time. And I feel like it's hard when you can't plan, when you don't see the patient ahead of time. Mm-hmm. Like, for a lot of us, they're already pre-op and they roll in the room. That's the first time you're seeing them. You're like, all their weight's up here. Crap.
Yep.
Yes, like the first time I picked up a head with the blade, I was like, whoa, is the head supposed to be that heavy? I know it's...
Right. It's a lot different than the mannequins.
Correct.
Like, everybody must know that it's a lot different. It's good to, get used to the structures in the mouth and everything like that, but it's a lot different when you're dealing with an actual person versus the mannequin. Like, it's a lot looser, heavier, thicker, fluffier, lighter. It's not as stiff, and people's mouths are, so different. The airway looks different. It's deviated here and there. I mean, teeth here, no teeth there.
Yeah.
Tongue this big, tongue that big.
Yeah.
And then your chipper lip.
Yeah, or we talk about this, is like calling out what you see as you go in. Yeah. It just kind of makes everyone else feel a little
It took me a minute to get there, though. It really did, because initially I was like, stop talking to me. Like, let me just, I don't know what I see yet. Like, stop talking. Shut up.
For me, we were warned that we would be asked questions as we intubate, right? And then I remember before leaving my home state to come to anesthesia school, I asked one of the anesthesiologists I work with, what is the one advice you could give me for me to be successful? And he said, it was a she actually, sorry. She said, if there is anything you can take from me, it is to talk through your intubation. Tell me everything from the time you're starting, because I don't know what it is that you see. I don't have an idea of your level of expertise per se. You talk through it, and another bonus will be I can't ask you questions if you're talking. So from day one, Lindsay and I, we would debrief after, but I would literally say, I'm going to scissor your mouth, and I'm sweeping the tongue. I'm in the vallicula. I'm lifting up and away from the lip and teeth. And I will do that and move my finger around because I've busted a few lips before.
I busted one yesterday. Well, like, how many months has it been?
And it will happen, but you try for it not to happen. And I'll say, okay, before you even ask me, what do you see? I tell you, I have a grade 1 view. I have a grade 2B view. I don't have a good view. I don't have epiglottic view at all. I will not stop until I'm through the cords, and I'll say, I'm through the cords, please inflate the balloon. If I have somebody who's next to me who's gonna do it, all the way to my sweep. Like once I'm done and I'm through, I'm taping at 22 centimeters at the lip. That way everybody can hear me. And at that point, I have never been pimped during an intubation, and it works great because the other person now thinks I'm a genius. And at the same time, I didn't have to answer a million questions.
They're not nervous.
And they're not nervous because you told them. And same thing goes when I can't have a good view. They know ahead of time that they're going to have to come over. Then it's not a frantic moment where, well, she didn't get it. I knew exactly where we were and why and how. And then sometimes they'll say, do you think you need cricoid pressure? And I'll either do it myself, which took me a long time to do, or I'll tell them yes, and then this works. Okay, now I have a grade 1 view, and I'm through the cords. Please slowly pull the stylet, and they'll tell me things like, you have great communication style. Well, it helped me because it gets me to stay on the steps and not miss something. It also allows me not to be nervous about any process, like even if it's a very difficult view that I'm getting. I feel like there is a sense of calm just by talking. Again, like I said, the whole pimping and anesthesia, I don't get that during intubation. It's overall pretty good. You get immediate feedback from the person. Well, how about you do this instead? Because you're communicating to them.
One thing that helped me was in that first week, one of the preceptors, she told me one thing that she does with newer people is she makes them use the glidoscope. So now you don't necessarily have to talk it through, even though it's a good process or practice to do. She can see everything you see right now. And I think that was pretty cool. I actually was, when I was doing it though, because of my nerves, I'm actually looking in, and she was like, nope, look up, it's right there. I was like, okay, yeah, there it is, all right. But that's all the process too, you learn how to use, video, laryngoscopy, so. But that helped for sure.
I like that idea, but...
And glidoscope's its own technique. Like, we still need to know how to use it.
And it's not easy.
No, I like McGrath better, but...
Yes.
I like both. I think with the glidoscope, with that rigid stylet, if you learn how to manipulate that bad boy, especially holding it up at the most proximal end of it, and guiding it with that part versus trying to hold it like a tube, that helped tremendously. And I actually showed a couple of my classmates that going in sideways and actually, rotating, and it's worked every time since.
Drive from the back. That's what I was told.
Drive from the back. Exactly. And not so much of the blue part like all the way in, but have it kind of like a little bit out, so now you can inch it with your thumb, and of course it comes out, like it's going towards the feet.
Yeah.
That helped out a lot. And, just learning like those, like you said, the devil's in the details. Learning those little bitty things like that actually helps a lot. Positioning has been everything for me. I was terrible with positioning initially because you're focusing on just, the intubation skill or other things. And I talked to you about the ramping and like how to properly ramp, or bed positioning or head positioning. Once you got the blade in, thinking about, okay, now I can manipulate the head if I need to. I used to forget all about that. I'm like, no, both my hands need to be up here where the mouth is, but they don't.
You can lift the head.
Or the right size blade for the right patient, because you're used to every day you try to do a Miller 2 or a Mach 3. but then you have a 6'5" tall man, and you're like, I'm gonna go with my regular Miller too. And then you're missing it, and then you're like, well, maybe. Like Lindsay and I talked about this the other day. Go ahead, they ate it. They ate the blade.
They ate your finger too.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, well, I guess there are times that we'll miss an intubation, although you do it over, you don't miss it for the same reasons. Now you miss it for different reasons.
Yeah.
I've discovered that if my patient is anywhere near a BMI that is in the high 30s towards a 40, I'm going to automatically ramp you up. I look at the BMI, I'm like, yes, I'm getting a wedge or a blanket. And now I use reverse Trendelenburg on everybody, even if they're not heavy. It helps with FRC, so why not add it? But it's definitely a good cheat for you to get your access. So I'll do that every time.
That's an important thing to note. Like, you don't always have to use the ramp in order to get proper positioning. It could be the bed, it could be the back of the bed, it could be reverse Trendel. You know what I'm saying? It's really just thinking about what all you can do to make this the easiest intubation for you, or the easiest airway, because you know that could definitely make or break, especially if you have somebody that's low on FRC anyway, and probably gonna desat very quickly. You have to think about whatever little thing you can do, to help yourself out.
If you don't get it, it's okay.
Bad. It's bad.
No big deal. No big deal. And what happens when you get that Mallampati 4?
Tell us about it.
Do you like celebrate? Do you walk out of the room?
I don't say anything
like,
because then I'm gonna mess up on the next one.
Oh yeah, on the inside for sure.
Inside.
On the inside for sure.
You celebrate inside.
Oh,
You
yeah.
don't celebrate on the outside.
No, you
Tell
can't.
me why not?
No, because you'll be humbled very quickly.
Yes.
Very quickly.
The universe.
Then you
Like,
won't get that
hey,
next IV. You won't get that next intubation.
Oh, you're not gonna get that next Mallampati 1 intubation
That
with
too.
a McGrath.
You
Yes.
sound like you're speaking from experience.
Yes, sir. Yes, I am.
Monday.
Exactly. You're like, yes, I was supposed to use a gladoscope for the patient, but I decided I want to get really good at intubation at DL. And I'm going to go with my regular blade. I'm going to use all the things that I've been doing, my ramping, my positioning, my axis, and yeah, I got it. The CRN is like, I would not have been able to get that. I don't know how you did it. And you just go, yes. Then the next time, a few weeks later, Mallampati 1, position, McGrath, you can't intubate. Anesthesia God's got you back.
No, McGrath.
So you don't. I mean, it's okay to feel good, but don't gloat.
Yeah, I mean, that's with life, with anything in life, right? I mean, at any given time, you can be humbled, like, really quick.
Stay humble,
But
or
I do
you will be
believe-
humbled.
I do believe that there is such a thing as the concept of anesthesia gods. It never fails, at least not for me.
It keeps you nice and basal with it, so you don't get too high, not too low.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I think about it like baseball. I play baseball, and baseball is a long season. It's 160 something games, and it's kind of like if you get too high on yourself for hitting a couple of home runs and batting over 400 in the first week, first month, you got several months to go. You got several at bats to go, several different cities, several different pitches. Yeah, that batting average is gonna do this. So you got to prepare yourself for the ride and not get too high or too low. And that's really just fleshing that, like we were talking about if you miss an intubation. You can't be too hard on yourself. Understand you're gonna have another opportunity. Take it upon yourself to try and learn from that experience. What did you do wrong? What did the person who got it right do differently? Because there's always that silver lining of actually learning from your quote unquote mistakes or failures. It's always opportunity to get better, and that's how I try to approach everything. Even days when you may not have very many cases or very many opportunities, what did you get from the day? Like if you decide that I'm not going to have a day where I don't get something from it, then you will always get something from it. It's mindset.
Always learning. I like it.
Yep, and I've learned through debriefing after clinic. We'll get out of the hospital that sometimes I'll miss an intubation. I could have used a bougie. I just didn't think about it. But then Lindsay uses a bougie a lot. Do you use a bougie a lot?
I have not used a bougie one time yet, and I want to. It's just I haven't.
What prompts you for you to say, grab me a bougie, usually?
It's like that textbook grade 3 You just see the epiglottis and that's it. And you know it's just underneath.
So you'll just do it. She's used it a lot more than I have, which made me question, am I not recognizing enough? Or am I not having those patients? Or did I figure out a way for it to happen?
Is it me or is it them?
That's me. That's
know?
me. As I'm always thinking that it's something I did wrong. So I'm not thinking about maybe this is just all you're going to see and I should grab the bougie or I'm going to grab. I'm thinking maybe I didn't ramp quite well enough. Maybe I didn't position them quite well enough.
Yeah.
It's, I didn't grab the right blade. I'm not, manipulating their head the best. I think it's me versus thinking it's them and I need to grab my tools for them.
Especially when you look in the pre-op and you're like, well, 5 months ago they were a grade 1 view.
So it's you.
Something. Well, but then again, maybe now they have new swelling. No. What about the, let's say, the intubation that nobody could get? Have you ever had that? Where the SAT started, where the SAT started dropping, the sound of the SAT dropping, the fear, the coming out and then ventilating. Like, have you guys had?
Yeah.
What's your worst intubation stories? Like, do you have any bad or funny, any weird looking things?
It wasn't funny.
Go ahead and lay it down.
What do you have?
It wasn't funny. He just had a bowling ball head. He was a big guy. And I go in, and I can't see anything. And so I was like, hand me the bougie. I couldn't get it with the bougie. And then his SATs just went down to 60. And I'm two-hand mask holding it. And he only comes up to like 85. And my anesthesiologist, calm as a cucumber, just hands me the LMA. Would you like to try this? And he, popped up into the 90s with the LMA.
Best oral airway you can get, right?
Yeah.
You know what they call
And,
it?
and that day was the day I stopped struggling with placing LMAs. Because I just got it in there.
You don't know how you got it in there, but it got in there.
Normally I'm like a tongue blade and nicely putting it. Nope. I just put my finger in there and got the tongue out of the way and put it in because I was shaking.
You became an expert that day at LMA.
That was the day I stopped struggling
That's
with
a whole
LMAs.
nother topic we could talk about another day. LMA is goodness gracious.
Agreed.
I've had my dance with that mother.
Well, we got a McGrath and intubated him. But
it wasn't funny at the time, but it definitely has changed one thing in my pre-op questioning. A patient with crown, who I went to scissor, and that crown, I guess, came loose because, again, in talking through my intubation, I am scissoring, I'm moving, sweeping the tongue left, I am picking up in a way. I have epiglottis, and I'm like, well, there is something that is shiny on one end, white on the other, and I don't know what it is. And the anesthesiologist is next to me, is like, wait, what? Don't do anything. Long story short, the crown must have been loose from before because the entire root of it came out. And all I did was scissor. Like, I didn't knock anything. There was nothing hard. None of that.
Oh, yes, you did. You're the student. You did. You knocked that thing.
It's your fault. It's always your fault.
But the fact that I was talking and I was like, well, there's something here that I never usually see before. So he grabbed the McGill, pulled it out. We had to reventilate. She was, of course, one of those heavy patients who we ramped up, who does not have enough FRC to buy us time to be dealing with a loose crown. And it was a very frightening moment. But ever since then, I will actually legit ask a patient, like, if I go shake all your teeth, they'll stay in place.
Oh, yeah. Like, you got to be specific. Well, you didn't ask that, so...
we go into the asking the questions, like, any loose teeth? And they're like, yeah, we're good. Like, no. I'm like, so if I go and I wiggle them all, they will stay in place because of that one experience. And they'll say, no, actually, this one here is loose. And I'm like, McGrath it is. I'm not going to mess with that one.
Which number 2?
Correct.
I actually had a buddy who did knock one loose that was already loose. And, they grabbed it out or whatever and, proceeded. Because, it was loose right there in the mouth. Like, it didn't go down the throat.
I've had one loose that I went in and it wanted to go forward. And I said, no, not today. So that's pretty hard when it's already there, ready to come out.
So what did you do? Did you snatch
No, I did not. No, I did not.
it? So what did you do?
I just proceeded and I did not scissor. This is when the moment I learned not to scissor. I did not scissor that mouth. I did not
Manipulation
put
of the
my
head.
fingers in there. I just very gently went with the Mac blade, lifted. And it's funny because I kind of tilted a little bit right. It did not have the best view. I had a 2B, but I had cords. I went in and I came out as slowly as I've never pulled the blade out so slow in someone. But I surely didn't. I was like, tooth is here.
Put some
Oral
tape on
airway,
it.
same thing. Tape on it,
Dermabond.
tooth is still there. You wish you could dermabond. It's like, hello, mission accomplished. Now, I don't know what happens for extubation. I wasn't there for that one, but stayed in place, so mission accomplished.
I had a whole bunch of crazy,
Knock on wood, not yet.
yet. I know that will come. But, I think my biggest thing, which was probably like to my own detriment early on, was like knowing my limitations and not trying to. I didn't want to stall too much, but I also didn't want to, be scraping around in the mouth and getting it all inflamed and everything. So I would try. I would, attempt to do my best to see what I could do, see what I could find initially. But my heart was always like, I don't want to hurt this patient any more than they're already in. So, and like I said, it was to my detriment earlier. I pass it off. I'd be like, I can't see anything, or I see something, but I can't, quite get the view that I want. I wasn't brave enough, or even thinking, bougie. I see epiglottis. I don't see that textbook of what I'm trying to see, those white cords. So, but it was one instance I remember I was using. It was a patient. I was, feeling myself a little bit, feeling good, wanting to DL, and off top, the CRNA was like, no, I think we should McGrath this patient. And I was like, really? Like, let me try. In my head, I didn't say that. I didn't verbalize that. And so, she went ahead and had everything set up before I even got in the room. She already knew that's what we were doing before we even talked about the plan. Go in there and, get the patient positioned and everything, big patient. Go in with the McGrath and everything's blurry. It's like gel is on the front of the McGrath. And I'm, still trying to, what do you see? And I'm like, I can't see anything. It's like really blurry. And they thinking, okay, is it spit or something on the, I'm like, I don't know what this is. Well, come to find out, she hadn't slid the sleeve on all the way.
Oh.
Yeah. And so the patient desatted and everything. And of course, now, big patient, really big, wide face or whatever. So had a 2-hand mask as well, and some preceptors or some people that are in the room, when everything doesn't go according to plan, they're, moving fast and just frantically freaking out. And there's others that, all right, do what you have to do, bag the patient, put in the oral airway, they make it more calm for you to succeed versus somebody who's frantic themselves. And that's one thing I've learned on this process, along this journey as well, is it's hard for people to feel comfortable with you as a student when they're not really comfortable with themselves quite yet, So, grace is given there. I understand it's kind of tough, especially if I've only been CRNAs practicing for 1 to 5 years or whatever, and they don't feel themselves enough to have a student there not doing exactly what they want them to do, or can't tell them exactly what they see and everything. So it's been a process, but I've enjoyed the ride for sure.
Do you guys lubricate your stylets?
Well, at some facilities, that's the protocol. You better. If you don't, but if you see on the packaging, it actually says lubricated stylet, and actually a CRNA brought that to me. It's like, you young people don't read anymore. It's already lubricated. What you lubricating it again for? I was like, okay, so
Well,
don't
some people want to pull it like a lawnmower,
Correct.
and if it's gelled up a little bit, when they lawnmower that thing out.
And like I learned from like devil in the details. It's curved to your tube, right? And it actually, when they pull it out, they pull it towards the toes,
Not all
towards the
the time.
feet.
You're supposed to.
Sometimes they just
No,
hit you in
I'm
the
saying
face when they're pulling it out.
If they did, that'll make a big difference instead of trying to, because a lot of people try to pull it this way, and it's it's like this. So you pull it, it's fighting against the tube versus going like that.
Your finger shouldn't go like
Correct.
that.
They're crazy, I'm telling you.
Or you'll have the one person who is removing the stylet but holding onto your tube. And I'm like, no, you can't.
They're like, hold the tube. I'm trying. You put
I'm
it.
holding the tube, but then they're holding onto the tube to pull out the
You
stylet.
extubate.
No.
I just got this. If you pull that way.
I have literally had my tube moved back from whoever was pulling the stylet. So
Because they lawnmower it. Like they're trying to start a lawnmower.
like
Not
No, so
gently,
this is when I
gently.
say, this is my word. I said, this is again part of my talking. One of my last sentences is, please slowly pull the stylet.
I said, okay.
I just say it automatically. I don't care how many times you pull the stylet, it's part of my spiel. And if you did not remember it, I should remind you, because that has happened and it's not a good feeling. Have you ever tried to pull out your own stylet?
Yes.
Yeah, because no one was pulling it out, and I was like, well, I guess I'm pulling the stylet out.
Well,
Yeah.
isn't it awkward though when you're so used to somebody doing it? Now you're like, wait, what do I do?
Or when like if you're used to people blowing up your balloon.
Correct.
And they
And then
don't.
that
Then you
first
see on
breath.
there like, what are you doing? Why didn't you blow your balloon? I thought somebody. I'm sorry. Put it in there. You know, you
Right.
just get used to the process and the flow of how others do it, and then you get somewhere where it ain't what it is.
Yeah.
You
You
gotta
squeeze
get-
that bag, and all the air goes out, and you're like, oops,
Yeah.
bad
Yeah.
style point.
Oh, nobody put the air in there. Okay.
And then for your tube size, do you guys have a formula of female 7.5, male 8, or do you have, oh no, we need 6.5 so that the vocal cords don't hurt?
Kinda
I think it
eyeball
depends
that
on the
thing.
procedure. If we're going in Trendelenburg and they're big,
You want a bigger tube.
want a
for
little
sure.
bigger tube.
Smokers,
Yeah.
COPDers.
Male
Yeah.
versus female.
Would you put an 8 in a female?
If it was open heart, yeah.
Right, but
if it's
outside
an
of
ICU
that,
intubation, yeah.
okay.
I think it's procedural for sure and position.
Have you ever encountered CRNAs who will lose their mind
use what they want.
if you use a bigger tube?
Yep. Yeah, and you know, when in Rome, you know, you kind of learn.
I was about to say,
Just learn
part
the
of
flow.
it. I
Huh?
had
We're
a
wrong.
correct.
Whatever they want.
I had a doc ask me, tell me, what size are you using? He was supervising, so I had a CRNA. I said, the ET tube size that pleases my CRNA, sir. So he says, very good answer, but physiologically speaking, tell me what size you could use.
Right.
So we went into talking. Something that I picked up from one of my favorite mentors, CRNAs, is to objectively, technically, you could measure it through a chest X-ray, measure the millimeter internal diameter of that tube. Most people can well more than accommodate an 8 or 7.5 without
Based
it.
on the diameter of the trachea.
The diameter of the
cords.
trachea, the cords, and the tube. So the whole concept of, that's why I brought that up, is the whole concept of you have to go to a 6.5, which will create what, more resistance. But when I told him that, I explained to him, I do understand objectively you can go for more, but
You said
when in
6.5 will
Rome.
create more resistance. What law is this? I know you
Are
know it.
are we-
I
are
know
we-
you know
are
it.
Are we quizzing?
Of course you know it.
Are we quizzing?
No, because don't quiz me.
What is
I'ma
it?
sit-
Which law is it?
Which law is it?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe Laplace?
you is it Laplace?
Laplace?
It's not. It's not Laplace.
It's not. Is it Laplace?
It's not Laplace.
What law is it, Lindsay?
Is it Poisson?
Laplace.
Posers.
That's
Is it
That's what
Posers
you
law?
said?
Yeah.
Posers, Laplace. Great.
Well,
Yeah,
nobody
it's a whole
hold us
bunch
to
of them
those
out there.
laws.
Y'all look those up whenever you want.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go.